Okay, I think I just go ahead. Okay. So welcome to this session on building the best e-commerce search with open source software. My name is René Kriegler. I've worked in search for 15 years, mostly in e-commerce search with some of the top retailers. I'm also co-founder of MySys, which is a conference dedicated to e-commerce search. Technology-wise, my focus is on open source technologies, Lucene, Solr, Elasticsearch. I'm maintainer of Quirky. That's a library for query rewriting that we will see a bit later today, and also co-initiator of the course project. And now I'm working with Open Source Connections as their director e-commerce. So what I do is I lead the e-commerce efforts at Open Source Connections and work with clients in this domain. So Open Source Connections actually is a company with a mission to empower the world's search teams, and we do this in many ways. So one way is events like this, speak at conferences, meetups. We run our own meetup on search relevance. That's the Haystack meetup. You can find it at meetup.com. We run a search relevance Slack, so if you're interested in search relevance, that might be worthwhile. So you meet your peers there. So currently there are like 2,000 people who joined. And we also write books and blogs and run trainings. Like the most popular one probably is Think Like a Relevance Engineer. That gets you started in the relevance domain. But we also run trainings on more advanced topics like learning to rank for e-commerce, for search, and natural language processing. And of course, we do hands-on work on search, mostly with open source technologies, but also other technologies. And the focus always is on improving search and enabling and empowering the search teams. So within our companies, we have a number of maintainers. So open source is at the core of what we do. And projects include Lucene, Solr, OpenNLP, and we also maintain projects like this Learning to Rank plugin for Elasticsearch and Cupid. And we're hiring, of course. So let's tune into this notion of e-commerce and in search, because this is a general conference. And Lucien, probably, who just arrived, knows this slide very well. I use it a lot. So if we think about search, we can do this in the e-commerce space. We can always relate this to the consumer buying decision process as it is known from marketing. And search actually is applicable to all stages of this buying decision process. And it's not uncommon to see on a website like 60% of the purchases coming from search on this online shop, or have at least some touch point with search. So I think it's fair to say that search is a very crucial feature for an online shop. Yeah, so if you're a retailer, make sure you get your search right. And now the question is, how can we make this work as good as possible? What's the best search we can come up with? Yeah, because it's so fundamental. So let's look at the challenges. So search is very domain specific. There's no one-size-fits-all, so no one search solution that fits all domains and aspects of search. If you look at this, think about B2B versus B2C. Searches are very different. In B2B, you get a lot of recurring searches. The user searching the same stuff again and again, very close to this buying decision, versus consumers might be more explorative, more inspirational. Different domain. But then there's also C2C. Think about classified ads where it's user-generated content. Yeah? So the search might be different there, the data quality might be different there, and there are a lot of different aspects that you need to cover depending on those areas. Then think about the verticals. Yeah? So a search for electronics probably is a lot different from a search for fashion. Yeah? So fashion is images, inspiration, buy the look. Versus electronics, it's a lot about the attributes. Yeah? So the screen size matters, or the disk size. That's quite different, and the queries look different. Think about bicycles, hardware, perfume. Yeah? So how do we search for scent? Yeah? So I don't know how to do this. Maybe you search for a brand. Yeah? So, and then think about the business models behind this. So classified ads, I've already mentioned this. But then a marketplace. Yeah? So that's third-party content that you integrate. You might be a general retailer, a specialized vertical. So that's all very different. So in the end, I would say there are probably as many best e-commerce searches around as there are online shops. Each online shop needs their own specific implementation of search, and only you can create the best search for your website, for your e-commerce site. Yeah, so it's up to you. So this looks like a natural case for open source software. Yeah, so if this is so specific, you want to have control. You want to own your search to make it work for your specific domain. But then there are a lot of challenges. Yeah? Search is not a solved problem, not even in theory. There are many things where we really don't know how we can make this work. It's a complex problem. Yeah? So for example, look at the diverse user needs. Yeah? Some users need inspiration, they don't really know what they want, versus a very specific query for this 3x6 screw. Yeah? And it involves language and semantics. Understand the user via their keywords. What do they want if they send you this silly query? Yeah, so that's quite a challenge. Also, if you look at, okay, I asked the user what they are really looking for. Why did they make this purchase after this query? Oftentimes the answer is not very rational, and if it is, it's made up. Yeah, so it involves a lot of emotion and unconscious decisions. Yeah, so that's really hard. And then you might have different optimization targets. So as a seller, probably you have an interest that your users are happy, but you also want to make a profit. Yeah, so that's quite different. To add to this, search has many features. It's not just the retrieval, it's auto-suggest. There's a little pop-up in this search box, spelling correction, filters, and so on. So this is quite a huge thing. And what adds to the problem is the available search technologies, the available search engines were not made specifically for e-commerce search. They were made for general document search, so the ranking and scoring and retrieval algorithms are hardly applicable to e-commerce search. All right, if this is problematic, let's go to commercial software. But then, so this example product owner might think, well, if you decide this closed source commercial solution, we might not have the flexibility to really implement what we need in our domain, and we will have a hard time to implement our great ideas. We might end up on the implementation backlog of this vendor. Yeah? So that's a problem. And then also our competitors can use the same technology. So how can we create a competitive advantage? So that's difficult. Yeah? We would not own our search if you went to commercial software. So let's go back to open source. And unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff you need to do before you can actually do what you really want to do. Yeah? So if you migrate from a search solution to a commercial search solution to open source, what happens more often than not is that you spend a year just getting on par with the commercial solutions. Yeah? So they are quite advanced. They just don't give you the flexibility and the ownership. But to get on par with them, you have to implement a number of solutions before you can go to the fancy stuff like learning to rank, machine learning for search, or understanding your specific domain, personalization, recommendations, and become innovative. Yeah, so that's a bit of a problem. And I want to talk about Chorus that wants to speed you up. So this is a project that I want to bring up here. And the idea is that Chorus gets you started quickly and takes care of those first steps that you need to do, and then you can go to the stuff that you really want to do more quickly. Yeah, so that's the idea of Chorus. So what is Chorus? Chorus is a project. Yeah, so it's not a huge software. It's a project that combines a number of artifacts, I would say, or softwares in search, libraries in search, and it provides you with an example. Yes, it's an example application that you can use, and it combines those components. And which are those components? So we have a Solr search engine. I know that, I think in this country, Elasticsearch is much more popular, and it's easy to get from Solr to Elasticsearch, and there will be a version of Chorus for Elasticsearch, so give us a second, but we started off with Solr. It gives you a simple UI based on Blacklight, so that's a framework that generates the UI. So then we use Quirky at the core of it for query rewriting, and I'm going to explain in a bit what that means. Smoothie for maintaining rules like synonyms and boostings. And then we have a number of evaluation tools to measure our quality offline and improve our search quality offline. So one of them is Cupid. So that gives you the opportunity to manually label your search results. So you say, oh, this is a good result, that's a bad result, good result, bad results. And then you try to change your algorithm to bring to the top the good results. And that, after labeling, you can measure this. Yeah? So you can then change your configuration and improve on that. And the rated ranking evaluator could help you to actually calculate metrics on those labeled data. And we started it last year, early last year, and presented it for the first time mid last year. In what follows, I want to talk a bit more about Quirky and Smoothie, but I want to give you a quick demo how it looks like. So that's the UI that was generated, probably not the most beautiful UI and nothing I would throw out to a consumer, but in the end it gets typical elements like facets on the left and so on. And I've already run a search for a notebook, and we get back bad results, so it's more or less accessories. And also we have a synonym, you can see the auto-completion already being there, a synonym like laptop. And the number of results changed. It went down to 184, and that doesn't really look good. It's still some accessory. And if you look back, we had more results for notebook, so we need to at least introduce a synonym. And this is where this UI comes in, the search management UI. And let's say we create a bidirectional synonym. So let's say laptop, we create a rule for laptop. Not a spelling rule, it's a synonym and a rule. And then we can say, oh, we want to add a synonym for this, and say the synonym should be notebook. We save this and then push this to Solar, this configuration. And then if you run notebook again, the number of results changed. So we got the laptops in addition to this. And if you search for laptop, we should see the same number of the results as we do. And we also can do something about the quality here. So we can say, well, we might have some insight what pushes the right results for this query to the top. And then we have these types of rules, and we can say, okay, I have this insight. I know AMD processors push the good results to the top because the accessory doesn't have a processor. I can save that, push this to Solar, and rerun my query, and we get laptops at the top. And the same should happen for notebook because it's a bidirectional synonym, and the implication is done automatically. I think I forgot to mention that what you see here all comes in a Docker image. So you fire up this Docker image, and you get these elements here. So you get the app, you get Solar running, you get the search management UI. Quirky is installed in Solar, and then you get other services like Cupid. So that's the labeling tool. So I've labeled the notebook query just for one result. That was bad. So there is this set of tools that helps you start quickly. So as I said, I want to focus for the remaining time a bit more on Quirky and Smoothie. So Smoothie is the search management UI, and Quirky is this query rewriting component that is a plugin in Solar, but also available for Elasticsearch. So search management in the first place sounds like something that we don't want to do. So we want to solve everything algorithmically. The thing is, it takes long. And even if you solved everything algorithmically, you cannot achieve this. So there will always be queries that you can't cover. And the problem is, what if this query is one of your most frequent queries and there's money behind this query? So you need some kind of manual management. And what I try to illustrate here is that with little effort, you can create a huge impact. So what this shows is a pie chart with both slices being 50%. So how can this be? So fortunately in search, we have this long tail distribution. And with a small fraction of unique queries, we cover 50% of our traffic. Yeah? So this small number of queries here, that's taken from a retailer of 1 week worth of traffic from them, almost 4,000 queries, accounts for 50% of their traffic. And these queries had frequency peaking at 8,400 from 29 on. And the rest is 280,000 different queries. And most of them just searched once, and then some of them up to 29 times. Yes, you see this distribution, and you see why there is an opportunity in just dealing with those few queries. So I want to give you another example. So this is taken from a customer, from a client who shortly after introducing Quirky SMUI observed or had managed rules for 150 queries. And this already affected 6% of their traffic, and because these were head queries. And for those queries, they already saw an uplift in 20%, by 20% in their conversion rate. Yeah, so that's a great achievement, and you don't have to wait for the fancy stuff to get this done. A quick note on Quirky. So Quirky is independent of SMUI. I would say it even has a search engine independent core, so you might create a version for many other search engines, but there is a version for Solr and a version for Elasticsearch. And it can do more than just those rules that we just saw. It's a general query rewriting framework. And it was created in 2014 and has evolved since then. And now it's being used with some major e-commerce company. There's a bit of a focus on German-speaking countries. But I think at least Rubix might be known here, a B2B platform, and it's also used in Switzerland and Walmart Labs and so on. So overall, it has received quite some adoption. It has seen billions of requests, and it scores pretty well. So what types of rewriters come out of the box? So what we've seen is what we call the common rules. Yeah? So we have seen a synonym rule, but also a boosting. Yeah? So we boosted those AMD things, everything that contains AMD. But there are other rewriters, so you could do a normalization of the query before you match your rules. Yeah? So you have to maintain just the rule for Apple instead for APPEL as well. So you normalize this in the replace rewriter first before you apply the rules. The word break rewriter deals with word breaks in languages like especially German or Dutch, where we have a lot of word compounds, so we want to match even for difficult compounding morphology. Last example I like very much, that's food for dogs in Dutch, and basically it gives you a compound dog food, and basically this can be configured that this for triggers the compound by reversing the word, yeah? the two parts. Last but not least, we have a number unit rewriter. That means if you see something like 16-inch, you can say, I want to apply a filter based from 2, let's say in this case it's 14 to 16, but of course say 15 to 17 maybe, like a screen size. But then you boost the one that matches exactly what was in the query. Yeah, so I think this is a nice feature. And you can wrap your own rewriter. So it's pluggable, and you can write your own rewriter. So conclusions. So I think Chorus gets you started quickly onto your path to your best e-commerce search. Yeah? So you get out of the way stuff that you need to do, and then you can do quickly, and then you can do what you want to do. But also the basic stuff can be fun. The active search management is a powerful tool, and you can see a positive impact from it quickly, as I tried to show. And this is not only a business thing, it also can take pressure off the search team. Nothing is worse than managers or whoever comes with, this search sucks. Yeah, I think those of you who work in search have heard this a lot. And you can say, okay, I just fixed this query there. I don't have to touch the algorithm. Yeah, so, and then this is a lot more peaceful for the search team. Some search teams might stop just after this. If they cannot invest further, they can still use open source technologies, and they can scale this as a process. Maybe never go to generalizing solutions into their algorithm, but keep maintaining rules and maybe occasionally measure and to do a little optimization, but never go to the levels where they do learning to rank or whatever. And that might be appropriate. Yeah, so open source always means investment, and basically you have the flexibility, but you can also say, okay, this is what I can get. And the team also needs to mature over time, and maybe you never get the folks who can do that. So overall, I think the open source nature of this allows you to fully own, of course, allows you to fully own your search and then build more sophisticated solutions over time. And that's it. Thank you. I'm not sure if there's a timekeeper, but I would take questions. Any questions? Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for everything. I would like to know, do you have some specific feature only for English, or every language have the same treatments?
Yeah. So I would say overall it's language agnostic. Why is this happening? This is weird. What we saw in this one slide is we have a specific thing for Dutch, but overall it's agnostic. The search engines themselves come with coverage for languages so that you can process language-specific morphology, for instance. I admit I have not seen SMUI, quirky for languages other than those that write from left to right and use characters for phonemes, so to say, and not syllables like Asian languages. I would assume it would also work for Arabic and Hebrew. But overall, I think it's not a big issue to adapt it to these languages. Yeah? So I'd be hesitant with Japanese and Chinese. I have too little experience in those. But overall, I think I can't see why it wouldn't work.
Can you import, or do you have some standard ontologies, set of rules, and so on that you could share and communicate?
I sometimes get this question from customers, so they want to use synonyms that others created. I would say it's always very domain specific. Yeah? So a standard set of synonyms might not cover your specific domain. And also as language is growing, I'd be reluctant to it, that this would happen. And I've seen something like within companies that one subsidiary would send their synonyms to the other subsidiary and they would use it, and then it gets messy. Yeah? So you should have a conscious concept how you would use synonyms. And maybe it serves as an inspiration, but still you should have control over your synonyms. Technically, I would say, I think SMUI can import stuff. Yeah, so you can, and also quirky, I mean, this is what you see here. If you don't want to use SMUI, quirky itself, this is like a textual configuration. So you can use like a flat file. So whatever you have, you can convert it into this format and then import it. Yeah. But we don't maintain something like shared taxonomy. I got inspired a bit by the guys from all.site. So the GitHub like approach could also be applicable to sharing those assets like synonyms, and then you can take them or modify them and decide what you use. Yeah, but it should be a conscious process. Okay, so I'm getting the signal. Stop. Let's stop here. Okay, thank you.